Good evening to all of you. Today, let's talk about a little technical topic of geography. However, this topic is a sort of cocktail, as it is the combination of geography, little bit astronomy, other than some knowledge of mathematics is also important. So what do you mean by tide? We will understand how all these things are related to this tide. The alternate rise and fall of the water is called tide. Perhaps it is the simplest definition I can give. The alternate rise and fall of the water is called tide. And this tide occurs because of the gravitational forces of the earth, moon, and the sun. These three celestial bodies are responsible behind this tide. You should also know one thing, as I have already told you, that a little bit astrology is also involved. So you may have heard the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse. When solar eclipse happens, the solar eclipse happens when the moon comes. The moon comes between the earth and the sun. E stands for the earth, okay, M stands for the moon, and S stands for the sun. So solar eclipse when the moon comes between the earth and the sun. Because the moon comes, we hardly experience the sunlight from the sun, as this moon starts working as an obstruction. The just opposite of it, the lunar eclipse. Because in lunar eclipse, the earth comes in between, and moon this side and the sun is there. So these two positions you need to keep in mind. One of them is called the full moon day, and the other one is called new moon day. Which one is called a new moon and which one is full moon? Which one is new moon and which one is full moon? New moon means no moon. So when the no moon will occur, and when the full moon means Purnima. So when the Purnima will, look, this situation will be Purnima, this one, and this will be called full moon, and this will be called as
Amavasya.
Yes, new moon. Okay, new moon. Now let's talk about the positions of the sun, earth, and moon. As I have told you that the gravitational forces of the earth, sun, and moon plays the role behind the development of the tide. So let's assume the tide, this is the sun, all right, and this one is the moon, and this is the earth. You should know one thing, that moon also it is smaller in size in comparison to the sun, but it plays more crucial role in generating the tide as compared to the sun. Why? Because the distance of the sun is very, very far. in comparison to the distance of the moon with respect to the earth. That's why, although it is very powerful, sun is very powerful, but because it has huge distance in comparison to the moon, as a result, the gravitational force does not play as significant role over the earth as the gravitational force exerted by the moon plays over the earth. It's like a very powerful magnet, and one is a smaller magnet. But the problem is the powerful magnet is very, very far away. So you can only experience the outcome or the effect when you are reaching very close to the bigger magnet. So because of the distance of the sun, although it has a huge gravitational force, but because of the distance, so the most fundamental role, you can say, the moon is playing here. However, sun and earth, they are also significant, but I am telling that the moon is one of the most crucial factors behind the generation of the tide. So this is the first situation, all right. And in this situation, what happens that the sun and the moon, they both are, and the earth, they both are in a straight line. And since they both are in a straight line, in this situation, what will happen that the gravitational force exerted by the moon and the gravitational force exerted by the sun, they will add together. So you can say unity is strength. So because the gravitational force of the moon and earth are getting added here, and this is the earth, and what, more than 75% portion of the earth is occupied by the water. So the oceans are there. So what will happen that the ocean water, because of the gravitational force of the moon and the gravitational force of the sun, what will happen that a bulge will get created. Bulge. And this bulge is called tide. The opposite side also the bulge will be created, but this bulge is getting created because of the centrifugal force. Because of the centrifugal force. Centrifugal force of what? Centrifugal force of the earth. So it is the first position where the sun and the moon and the earth are aligned in this situation, and because of the combined forces of the sun and the moon, we experience the bulge. Since they are combined here, the gravitational force is combined here, therefore this bulge will be known as the spring tide. Spring tide. Now let's take the second situation. And what is that second situation? That, as you know, all these celestial bodies are not stationary in nature. They keep on revolving, rotating, and these movements keep on happening. Therefore, in the second situation, what will happen? That the moon will reach here. Okay, the moon will reach here, because the moon revolves around the earth or not. So in the second situation, moon will be here. Now what will happen when the moon is there? In this situation, the gravitational force which was getting combined in the first condition, here, since it is in 90 degree, so the gravitational force will get divided. Now the principle unity is strength will not work. Therefore, what will happen, since the gravitational force is getting divided, in this situation we will not experience that kind of bulge which we were experiencing in the very first situation when the gravitational forces of the sun and the moon both were combined. So naturally the bulging we will realize at this position as well, but this bulging will not be as strong as the bulging of the previous one. That's why this bulging or this tide is called as neap tide. Okay, neap tide. The first one is spring tide, the second is neap tide. This situation when the moon is between belongs to this one. The moon is between, and this is called new moon, also known as Amavasya. Now let's talk the third situation. In third situation where the moon will come. The moon will come here. In this situation what will occur? The spring tide will take place or the neap tide will happen? Which tide will take place?
Neap.
Neap. Why? Why neap will take place? Because the gravitational force is not combined.
दूर है सब.
No. Here also, and this is the twist. This is the twist because even in the third situation, we will be experiencing the spring tide. And why? Why we will be experiencing the spring tide? Because the sun is in this side, but you should, as I have told you, that the most important factor is the moon. And if you compare the position of the, this is one position, this was one position, and this was one position. The moon is here and the earth is here. So on this particular side, because of the presence of the moon as it is exerting the gravitational force on this side, the bulging will be created. The sun is on this side. The sun will try to reduce this bulging which has been created by the moon because sun is on this side. But you should know that when the moon was there and the bulging was created here, so the sun was here. So this bulging when the moon was there, this bulging was vulnerable, and because of this vulnerability, this sun, it was able to reduce the height of this bulging because of the position of the moon. But now the moon is there, that's why the bulging is on this side, which is just opposite of the sun. Because the bulging is just opposite of the sun, that's why sun will try to attract, but attracting the water from here is more easy for the sun as compared to attracting the water or pulling the water in its size as compared to this position. By the way, it is little bit technical, but I am telling in one line that even in this case, this case is known as what? This case is known as this one, a full moon. Why full moon? Because the earth is in between. The earth, the moon and the sun. So during the full moon position, we will be experiencing the spring tide. Look, this is the matter of little bit thought. It involves the thought process. You have to simply think that when the moon was there, at that time the bulging was created here. This bulging, since the sun is located here, so the sun was pulling the water, and because the position of the bulging here, that's why in comparison to this position, it was easy to pull the water by the sun. That's why this bulging is comparatively less as compared to this bulging, as it is just opposite of the sun, and the moon is already there, so moon is working in its full form. Because of this reason, we will be experiencing the spring tide even in this full moon day, which naturally enables us to think that no, here we cannot experience the spring tide, as the sun is there. Sun will be pulling the water in its own side and the moon is pulling the water in its own side. Then how can the spring tide will occur? But again I am telling that you have to concentrate on the position of this one and this one. Comparatively, when you will realize that it is difficult for the sun in this bulging to pull the water in its own side as compared to the bulging which was getting generated here. Anyway, so spring tide, this was the neap tide, and here again the moon is there. Since the forces are getting divided, the sun is on this side and the moon is on this side, this 90 degree, the gravitational forces will get divided and we will be experiencing again what? The neap tide. So neap tide in two positions, and spring tide in two positions. I hope it is clear little bit. Now the next question comes, which involves little bit knowledge of calculation. The astronomy has been used here as these exorcists. In Hindi we call them tantric. What they do? They take the advantage of this Amavasya or new moon day, and during this new moon day they discuss the black magic and all sorts of things. They wait to worship the god exactly on that day, as these kinds of things they believe on it. Now let me tell you, if anyone is asking after how many hours, days, month or year, let's assume this is the earth, okay, and on this particular position a place experiences spring tide. Okay, my question is, after how many hours the same place will experience the same kind of spring tide? After how many hours? The options are before you: 24 hours, 30 minutes, 24 hours, 40 minutes, 24 hours, 50 minutes, 24 hours. 60 minutes it cannot, otherwise it will be 25 hours. Yeah?
Every 12 hours.
After every 12 hours. No, it is not right. By the way, 12 is not in the option. So let's concentrate on this factor. Look, the earth is this, and we know earth completes one rotation in how many hours? 24 hours. 24 hours. So if this position, let's assume, the moon is there, as moon is the fundamental factor. So moon is there, the earth is there, and this place A is experiencing the spring tide. Now what will happen? Exactly after 24 hours, because earth completes one rotation in 24 hours, completes it or not? So don't you think the same point A will come on this place exactly after 24 hours? Will it come or not? So the answer should be 24 hours. Should it be or not? The answer should be 24 hours. But the answer is not even 24 hours. Why? This is the most technical point here, because in 24 hours, the time period required by the earth in order to complete one rotation, that is 24 hours. In that 24 hours, what moon will be doing? I mean, what? Moon will be doing moonwalk. Moon will also cover a certain distance, as the moon is not stationary. Moon is not stationary. So let's assume moon, this is the M1 position. Now what will happen? After 24 hours, moon will reach somewhere here, and this is the M2 position. So you can experience the spring tide exactly on the place A, when the A is coming exactly where? Just below this M2 position, because the moon has covered some distance. Moon has covered some distance. So this point you have to cover some extra distance in order to bring that place A exactly under the moon, that is exactly under the M2. So you have to cover extra distance, and that extra distance will require how much time? It will require, by the way, look, in some books it is written 48 minutes, some books it is written 50 minutes, 52 minutes, but I am going with the 51 as it is given in the NCERTs. So you require 50 minutes more in order to come exactly under the moon, as moon has also covered a certain distance in that 24 hours in which earth had completed one of its rotation. Now let me apply a little bit mathematics here, and you tell me the moon completes one rotation in how many days? I mean, the moon completes one complete a circle around the earth in how many days? Look, if you go technically, then you can say 29.5, something like this, but I'm not going with that figure. I am simply taking the 30 days. So in 30 days, the moon completes one rotation and revolution, as both the things are happening together, in 24 hours or not? Not in 24 hours, I mean in 30 days or not? In 30 days, the moon will complete one circle around the earth in 30 days or not? So in 30 days, how many degrees? 360. In 30 days, how many degrees? 360. So in one day, how many degrees?
360 by 30.
Yes, so it will be 12 degree. In one day, 12 degree. Why I am calculating for one day? Because the time period is 24 hours, and 24 hours is equal to one day. So if you are able to calculate how much distance will be covered by the earth in 24 hours, after that you can very easily calculate what will be the exact time. So this is the 12 degree, okay, in one day. So what does it mean? It does mean that earth has to cover extra 12 degree. Earth has to cover extra 12 degree, then only this position A exactly come below the M2. So now your challenge is how to calculate how much time is required by the earth in order to cover this 12 degree. And we have the formula. What is that formula? That earth completes a rotation on its axis in 24 hours. Completes it or not? So in 24 hours, how many degrees? 360. 24 hours, how many degrees? 360. When you calculate, so it will come in 1 hour, it will come 15 degree. Your challenge was what? How much time is needed in order to cover 12 degree? In order to cover 12 degree. So, 15 degree in 1 hour. 15 degree in 1 hour, or you can say in 60 minutes. If you simplify it little more, then what it will occur? It will occur 1 degree in 4 minutes. Am I right or not? 1 degree in 4 minutes, as 15 degree in 60 minutes. And your challenge was how much time is needed in order to cover 12 degree. So 1 degree in 4 minutes, so 12 degree in 12 into 4, it will come how much? 48. So you require 48 minutes more in order to bring exactly the place A just below this M2. By the way, look, if you had taken 29 point something, then we could have got exactly the 50. But my objective is to give you a conceptual clarity, and by understanding this calculation, you can get convinced why this is not exactly 24 hours. Why it is 24 hours 40 minutes and 24 hours 50 minutes. So the main thing you need to keep in mind that in 24 hours, as the moon is not stationary, it also covers that distance, some distance, and that distance is 12 degree. Therefore the place A will, it also has to cover the 12 degree, then only it can come, or this place exactly can come under the sun, and this 12 degree which has to be covered by the earth will require 48 minutes if we are taking 30 days in context to the moon. So because of this thing, this is not exactly 24 hours. So this was the full moon, new moon, the positions of the sun, earth and moon, and how the new tide, spring tide are occurring. Other than this, the significance of tide is concerned. So by the way, in India, the tidal energy, as it is a good source of energy, in India it is not exploited as much. It is exploited by the countries like Japan, France, USA, China, and the most important one is the South Korea, as the biggest tidal power plant in the world is located in South Korea. Apart from this, tide also helps bringing the vessels very close to the coast. especially this high tide, and this tide also generates the scope for the development of the new delta. So these are some significant points, or you can say the importance of this tidal energy which is getting generated because of the position of the sun, moon and the earth. So it was a small chapter of geography, NCERT class 11th. There is a chapter of ocean currents. In that ocean currents, the last segment is related to the tides. So it was from my side as far as this tide section was concerned. We will be discussing some other topics of geography in our coming classes. Namaskar.
दोनों